Hello, this is the second session that we're delivering with the UKRI Stakeholder Events on Place. These events took place across the UK in May and June 2018 across the various locations, 10 in total. I'm leading the second session today. I'm Rachel Tyrrell. I'm the Associate Director for Knowledge Exchange at Research England UKRI, and for Strength in Places, I lead as the Programme Director. I'm joined in delivering these sessions by Dean Cook, who's the Head of Regional Engagement at Innovate UK and the Strength in Places Senior Programme Lead. We're not here in our positions as Research England or as Innovate UK. As Dean mentioned on the first session, we're here as colleagues of UKRI to talk about the one of the first UKRI-wide schemes to be launched, the UKRI Strength in Places Fund. So I'm going to start by giving an introduction to the high-level aims and objectives of the Strength in Places Fund. Now, as I've discussed at the events that we've delivered across the UK, Strength in Places is a cross-UKRI programme, with delivery being led by Research England and Innovate UK. We're working in partnership together. We're also working in partnership with the higher education funding bodies of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And we're working in partnership with the Office for Students, who are advising us on the skills provision within the Strength in Places bids that we're expecting to receive. Now, a great deal of detailed work has been undertaken in the last few months, where we've reflected on other schemes that are offered by the councils of UKRI, other developing policy work and other existing funding streams. And we've looked to design the Strength in Places Fund to complement other schemes in existence, but also thinking about the evidence base, the other plans and strategies that are available across the UK. As I've set out at the other sessions that we held across the UK, we have high level of aims of Strength in Places, and we have specific objectives. As often happens with core documents, they're quite detailed and somewhat dense text. So I'm going to move forward to a quick summary and then reflect back with the high-level aims and objectives. So here is how we would define the key elements of Strength in Places Fund. It's business need that needs to be met by existing research strengths. It's a competitive fund for collaborative bids. These bids will be led by either research organisations or led by business, with consortia including both business and research organisations, and all of them with strong engagement from local leadership partners. The consortia will represent economic geographies across the UK that are self-defined by the bidders. These economic geographies will have existing research excellence and high-quality innovation capability, and they'll be particularly focused on and aligned to the needs of the local industry and the business supply chains. And the key point for Strength in Places, the golden thread, is that we're looking for activities that are likely to bring significant relative economic impact and regional growth. So if I return back now to the high-level aims and objectives, we can see one of our high-level aims, particularly supporting innovation-led relative regional growth. Identify areas of R&D strength that are driving clusters of businesses across a range of sizes that have a potential to innovate or adopt new technologies. In order that those clusters, once there has been the significant economic effect locally, will then become nationally and internationally competitive. And we're particularly highlighting this existing provision across the UK. So where there are already existing local collaborations that involve research and innovation, that build on the underpinning regional impact role that exist within our universities, our research institutes, catapults, innovation knowledge centres, IKCs, and other R&D facilities. And working and engaging with those businesses that are at the forefront of delivering economic growth, so those frontier firms within the identified economic geography. And then moving on to the specific objectives, as mentioned before, we're particularly focused that funded activities contribute towards significant relative regional economic growth. And we've given a definition of this relative economic growth, as we would expect there to be a significant impact locally that's closing the gap between that region and the best nationally. We're looking to fund activities that are in line with UKRI's mission, so that would be supporting excellent research and supporting those businesses and research organisations that are at or near to the frontiers of the economy. We're expecting through funding the bids that this excellent research and high quality innovation is completed or underway as a result of the funded proposals. We're expecting to see enhanced collaborations between business, research organisations and local leadership. We have a broader programme level aim that the evidence base around the impact of locally targeted R&D spending is improved, and we'll be assessing that from a programme level perspective, feeding in aspects and inputs from each of the individual project evaluations. And lastly, we're looking that the funded proposals deliver good value for money. We're particularly keen that that makes an investigation into it being relative to the area that's being supported and in terms of additionality. Now, how does this fit with SIA, Science Innovation Audits? It's not a prerequisite for applicants to have previously completed a Science and Innovation Audit, an SIA, and the SIPF is not a follow-on fund for SIA support. However, we're seeing SIA data as part of the evidence that consortia may draw upon, dependent on the economic geography that's making the bid. Certainly, across the SIAs that have been supported, there's a number of themes and sectors that have been drawn out by those holding an SIA. And for those bidders who are putting in an application to SIPF who have an SIA, we would expect there to be a certain level of refinement and focus when they're submitting the SIA, the Strength in Places Fund bid. It shouldn't naturally reflect all the content that was in an SIA. And we particularly like to highlight to bidders that this is not a follow-on fund for SIA support, and we expect and encourage consortia to apply who've not been involved. So moving on to flexible economic geography. With Strength in Places Fund, we've said that we'll focus primarily on specific economic geographies and the distinctive technology supply chain or the sector that's being driven in that locality. So the economic geography is the realistic local scale for the cluster that's being supported. We're not thinking that this will be necessarily constrained by local authority or political boundaries. We're expecting consortia to self-determine and self-define the appropriate spatial geography that the projects will fit in. We'll talk a little bit later in the third session, led by Dean, about the scale of the projects. And so you would naturally want to reflect when self-defining your economic geography as to whether it fits with the scale of the projects that we're looking to fund. We're expecting bidders to support the choice of their geography with robust evidence, and for this to be reflected in the range and choice of partners that are involved in the collaboration. And where bids are going across or covering a multiple local authority or devolved area, and really indeed with all bids, we're expecting all partners to be co-located within the economic geography that's being specified. So we're not looking to support work where significant resource is being drawn in from outside of the defined economic geography. So some points on scope and eligibility. The fund is open to any sector, any area of technology or any research discipline supported by UKRI where a local business need can be demonstrated. As before, bids can be led by either a business or by a research organisation, but the consortium need to include both research and both business partners. We're not looking to support bids that only contain a consortium of universities with local leadership or only a consortium of business with local leadership. It must have the three elements. And you must choose to align your bid to the most appropriate evidence base for the activities that you're setting out. So therefore that could be a regional economic plan, it could be a local industrial strategy, it could be a science and innovation audit, it may be a city region agenda, it could be a devolution agenda, whatever is the most appropriate to the activities that you have set out. We're anticipating strong engagement with local leadership and stakeholders. UKRI is not directly funding local leadership involvement in bids, and leaders of bids should choose how they would like to support their partners, either with co-investment, which could be monetary or in kind, and think about what the most appropriate way is to involve local leadership in their activities. So just some further detail on scope. This is set out further in the core documentation, which we will talk about in the third session, and we would really recommend that you read in full and in detail. We've set out a number of areas that we expect bids may fall under, and we've unpacked one in particular on this slide. So increasing local capacity to commercialise. So we would suggest that there may be existing research capacity that could be built upon to deliver a particular business outcome through commercialisation. So that might be taking technologies to market, it could involve licensing to existing companies, or it might involve industry partnerships. It may be that there's an opportunity to draw in overseas R&D and business investment with an international partner. It may be that there's a legacy industrial base that could be revived through the use of underlying technologies. It could be that there's an opportunity to transfer technology between industries. And finally, it may be that there's an opportunity to improve collaboration between universities or research organisations and SMEs that are located in the economic geography of the bid. Now, there are a number of activities that we have said are out of scope for Strength in Places. The first is that we're not looking through Strength in Places to invest in new strategic national infrastructure that should be supported through other UKRI programmes. So we're not looking to fund a new catapult centre or a new innovation knowledge centre. It's not to say that you couldn't build on existing capability, such as a catapult or an IKC in your bid, but we're not looking to replicate and duplicate existing programmes by funding new activity. We're not looking to recreate national grand challenges at a regional level that would risk duplication of funding. So, for example, through ISCF, the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, and other UKRI programmes. So we're not focusing local clusters on primarily delivering a national challenge or primarily meeting a national economic outcome. It must be focused specifically on the activity that's located in the economic geography. And then finally, we're not looking to fund through Strength in Places outreach programmes that will be transferring a locality's expertise from one region to another. As before, all partners need to be co-located in the economic geography. This slide tends to get the most attention at the events that we've presented at. It sets out the funding available and the timescales. So at present, the call for expressions of interest is open. It opened on the 21st of May, and it will close on the 25th of July 2018. The structure of the first wave of Strength in Places is that bidders will apply for expressions of interest by the 25th of July 2018. Those expressions of interest which are successfully funded will receive £50,000 seed-corn funding, which will support the successful EOI consortia to develop a full stage bid. The development period will be around 24 weeks, and the full stage bids that we worked up are to be between 10 million and 50 million over 3 to 5 years. So that's 10 million to 50 million funding that's requested from UKRI, with 50 million bids being considered exceptional. We expect to fund 4 to 8 bids at the full stage. That will depend on the size and the type of bids that come through to us. So to recap on the timings, at expression of interest, the closing date for applications is the 25th of July. The full stage, those successful EOIs will receive that £50,000 seed-corn funding to develop a full bid. That will be from mid-October of this year, 2018. Then they'll submit their full stage bids to a closed call to UKRI, and we will announce the successful full stage projects in early summer 2019. Thank you.